Yeah, I don't know if I want to watch the finals. It's just gonna be like more Tempest and like Spark It stuff again. Bears? Yeah, okay, when pigs fly. What? Yeah, I'm just gonna forget everything I know about Elestrals now. Hey, we're just up, everybody. So, okay, you don't have to rethink everything you know about Elestrals. We'll go over the decks in a little bit, and thankfully, the tournament didn't end up looking like a top 16 like this. That would have been unfun and unenjoyable, and in reality, the top 16 was extremely varied. So, we'll get into the decks in a bit. I do want to talk about the entire tournament as a whole first. First off, I didn't play in the tournament. I made the personal choice of wanting to be a support staff for the tournament, as well as Jacob, the previous champion of the prototype tournament, because we know that there needs to be a support staff for these tournaments. We're all volunteers going into these tournament support, and the support staff, like the tournament staff, needed the support because there was a lot of hiccups, and honestly, all the issues we ran into running the tournament were very small, but unfortunately they added up. Now, I've already spoken with Dan. He asked for a lot of feedback on how the tournament ran, how it went, etc. So I don't want to go digging too far behind the scenes and put all that in front of you guys. Just know that they're aware that they planned for things to go kind of wrong, things to not be optimal, there to be mistakes made. And that's partially why these tournaments were free to entry and open to pretty much everybody, because they know that there's going to be hiccups. They don't want to be, making paid tournaments or anything and have people be upset that they lost their money, etc. So that's a good thing that the tournaments are free. So what were the issues we ran into? So I'm going to talk about the public-facing issues that the players saw. Again, anything behind the scenes, I'm leaving that for a separate chat. That's not really relevant for the player experience. The player experience. Starting with the app. So the app was honestly statistically very stable. Now, unfortunately, approximately 5 to 10% of games throughout the entire tournament dropped due to disconnect for unknown reasons. Not players' internet, not connection issues, just, hey, some reason I dropped out and I couldn't reconnect in time, so I got a game lost. And that was unfortunately 5 to 10% of games, especially in the first couple brackets. Or the first couple Swiss rounds, sorry. Which is really frustrating. Now, in the grand scheme of things, 5 to 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's, 6 players who didn't get to play a game and got a game loss for it. Or in one case, in round 1 that I was watching, because I was assigned certain tables to keep an eye on, someone was going to win on their turn almost assuredly. It was a close game, but it was pretty much empty board to Voltempest. And there was almost no way they don't win off that, pass turn, expend Voltempest win. But they disconnected before the turn started. So they got a game loss for that. And that's really frustrating. So disconnects are frustrating. Now, in theory, you could reconnect to your lobby. But by the time you realize you disconnect, close the app, load the app back up, type in the tournament password, find your lobby in a sea of like 30 lobbies, the game probably closed. Which really is frustrating. The timer in the lobby is like 30 seconds maybe before it closes after disconnect. You might not realize for like 10 seconds that you're disconnected, and then you have to go through all these steps to reconnect. So people got game losses for that, and that's really unfortunate. And even the people who got the free wins for that, a lot of them were just like, oh, so they just get a loss now? Just really upset. Like, the big takeaway is players wanted to play the game. Like, first and foremost, again, it's a free tournament. The stakes weren't very high. Or high at all. People just wanted to play the game, and the fact that they couldn't play the game was upsetting to people. It was upsetting to get those game losses on either guaranteed wins, or you're in the middle of a match, it's going back and forth, you're having a good time, and poof, disconnect. So the connection issues were a little frustrating and unfortunate. Then the next issue is we had issues with the tournament software, where we had to pause play a couple times in round 2 and 3 to get everyone to a call to explain what's going on, fix the issues, send people back in the tournament, and then we had realized, oh wait, hold on, there's one more thing. Pulled them all back in, reposted the standings, only for a couple things to get missed here and there. And we had the same tournament software the previous week with no issues, but like half the players. So that issue got rectified, unfortunately, halfway through the tournament, which is frustrating. So we had a lot of people running around trying to collect players to tell them what's going on. And then once we got past all the Swiss rounds, which from round 3 onwards, things were very smooth. Once we got to at the end of round 6, there was a few people who had misplaced standings. We had to do that all behind the scenes, and they fixed it. And then a lot of people didn't know where they were sitting in Top Cut because a couple players had incorrect standings from the first few rounds. So that was another thing. It made it a little bit unclear who was progressing into top 16. So those were the major issues with everything. Again, the Elestrals team is aware of what's going on. Next time, I doubt any major issues like this will happen again. And things will move on and get better. Again, these were free tournaments, so the fact that they're free tournaments was for Elestrals to really buckle down and figure out what's going on, what to do. They're best of 1, again, to speed things along, to really fine-tune what's going on in these tournaments, to make sure that they're working more appropriately. And I am 100% certain in the next tournament, things are going to be way smoother and a lot more stable. So, there we go. That's negativity out of the way. Let's move out of the negativity to what was great about this tournament. The mood was, even with all these hiccups, the player mood in general was really like high morale. Like everyone was joining into one troop call at the end of each round or in between rounds, just having a good time, fooling around, messing with people, having a good time. At the end of the tournament, almost everybody in the top 16 was just like, hey guys, here's my deck. You know, the competitive nature was there, but at the same time, people are like, hey, I want to share this thing. What can I improve on my deck? Like, hey, let's talk about things. And a lot of high-end competitive tournament players are like very secretive of the deck. They want to hide their secret techs and don't want to give people their list because they don't want people copying them to beat them. And yet our top cut in this tournament, which was a bunch of really skilled players, were like, hey, here's my deck list. What do you guys think? Like, hey, I did well with it. What can I improve? And that's awesome. Like, again, the community morale and the actual fact that people just wanted to play the game and have fun was amazing. So that's the biggest pro from this entire tournament. My second biggest pro from this entire tournament, being the first Constructed tournament, again, a lot of people expected it to put the graphic up here again. Obviously, like Full Tempest, Spark It, Thunder Nexus everywhere. And in reality, this is what the decks actually looked like. I know I have it abbreviated as little icons everywhere, but generally, the decks were extremely varied. The most common package we saw was Thunder Nexus. There was a few decks that had Thunder Nexus flashed into another package like Jade Johnny over on second place, the finals bracket, was the Bears with the Nexus package, which is really interesting. Like, it's a really interesting deck. The Bears worked, like Urshier worked really well with Zeus, and then you have the Thunder Nexus behind it. Made a really interesting top tier deck that Johnny actually basically got dared to play, and it worked out for him. And then you have Karibo, the number 1 place, was playing a Wind Toolbox deck with Chrysor and a Pentair tech that he could kind of splash into if the shields were down, which is really interesting. Like, 2 really interesting decks that really weren't on the meta radar. Well, Thunder Nexus is on the meta radar, but Wind wasn't really on the meta radar going into it, and everyone kind of just says, oh yeah, Wind Toolbox is a thing, but it's not that great. And yet we see 3 Wind Toolbox decks in the top 16, which is really cool. A lot of people thought it was an upset that Kuribro won first place, because a lot of people don't know him that well in the community. I first started talking to him maybe like 2 weeks ago. I just popped into the stream one day. I was like, oh, let's see what this guy's up to. And I'm just thinking, oh, he's just an Elestrals player. He's just checking out the game or whatnot. And I started talking to him. It's like, oh, man, this guy really knows his stuff. So a lot of people weren't expecting him to do so well. And a lot of people, he wasn't on anyone's radar except for maybe 3 or 4 of us who actually have talked to him. He does some streams, does some YouTube, and blew it out of the water. And that is awesome. Jay Donnie was another favorite. Brought an interesting deck. Really messed with people and was able to also blow it out of the water and get second place. Unfortunately, no second place prize for Johnny. So deck variety, super interesting. Every element was represented. The least represented element actually was Earth, which is surprising. Like, the most we saw of Earth was Viserys and Earthquake. There was some fruit decks in the tournament. No one took fruit to top cut. Unfortunate. I love my fruit. But we saw water strategies, we saw water burn, we saw wind toolbox, we saw bears, we saw lock strategy with trident lock, like 5 guys, beat down stuff, wind, like toolboxing to Stratum with Pantera. Just really interesting, varied top cut, which I think is super awesome and always healthy for a game. And that's my favorite thing about the tournament besides the player morale, is just interesting decks that played well and competed what people thought were the top meta decks. And in the end, there were 2 full Nexus decks and 2 full Voltempest decks that made top cut, but that's 4 decks out of 16. The other 12 being really interesting takes on other decks. We had one 5 guys deck, another favorite deck to win. There was a 5 guys plus Thunder Nexus hybrid deck. There was like an Earth plus Sonicore deck. So many interesting builds, and a lot of people just took like, I'm going to take a small package of one good deck and a small package of another good deck and put them together to make a hybrid, which made it really cool. It came out to like 5 Thunder Nexus decks was the most popular like sub archetype in each person's deck. And bears, like, and then everything was like wind bear. It's just a lot of interesting stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of improvement the tournament could have on how it runs, but ultimately, like, the decks were interesting, the players had fun, and that is, I think, the best part about Elestrals right now. It's just people want to play the game, and people have fun playing the game, even in a competitive nature. And people aren't being overtly like, I have to hide my secret decks, and people just want to share their information, get better, improve, and just do better in the game and have fun and a good time, which is amazing. And I love that. That's like the best part about the entire community as a whole. So that's my thoughts on the entire tournament. If you guys play in the tournament, what do you think? What deck did you play if you played in the tournament and didn't do well? And where do you think it can improve next time? I wanted to hear all your thoughts. Let me know below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.